What if I told you that the most important skill you need for success isn't taught in school, isn't measured in exams, and isn't something you can memorize? Yet it silently determines your happiness, your relationships, your decisions, your career, even the way people treat you. What if the real reason you lose control, get misunderstood, feel overwhelmed, or struggle with people isn't because you're weak, but because no one ever taught you how your emotions actually work? Today, we're diving into a book that shook the world of psychology and changed the way millions of people think about human potential, Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. And trust me, once you understand what this book reveals, you'll never see yourself or anyone around you the same way again. Daniel Goleman, a science journalist for the New York Times, didn't just write another self-help book. He exposed a truth that was hiding in plain sight. Being smart doesn't guarantee success. High IQ doesn't guarantee happiness. And talent alone doesn't guarantee meaningful relationships. Goleman revealed something far more powerful. The human mind is driven not by logic, but by emotion. And the people who master their emotions quietly dominate every part of life. This book isn't about controlling your feelings the way most people think. No, it's about understanding why you get angry at the wrong time, why you panic when you shouldn't, why you fall into emotional traps, why people trigger you, why relationships fall apart, and why some people thrive under pressure while others break. It's about decoding the emotional blueprint that runs your life, often without your permission. Goleman takes you inside the architecture of the brain, showing how ancient emotional circuits can hijack your thinking, how stress rewires your behavior, and why one emotional reaction can destroy opportunities in seconds. At the same time, he reveals how emotional intelligence skills like self-awareness, empathy, and emotional self-regulation can transform your confidence, your communication, your ability to influence others, and your sense of inner peace. This book doesn't just explain emotion, it exposes the hidden system behind it. And once you see that system, something incredible happens. You stop being controlled by your emotions and start controlling the outcome of your life. So if you've ever felt misunderstood, overwhelmed, insecure, or trapped by reactions you didn't want to have, if you've ever wondered why some people seem naturally confident, naturally charismatic, naturally calm, while others are stuck in emotional chaos, then stay with me till the end. Because this summary is not just information, it's a mirror. A mirror that shows you the emotional patterns that shape your identity, your choices, your relationships, and your future. This is emotional intelligence. And after today, you won't just understand emotions, you'll understand yourself. What if the reason your life feels stuck is because you're lacking skills, opportunities, or intelligence, but because you've been using the wrong definition of smart your entire life? What if the world has been measuring intelligence incorrectly, and the real power, the real advantage, lies in something invisible, something rarely taught, yet something that controls everything you think, feel, and do? Chapter 1. What Emotional Intelligence Really Means exposes a truth we've all sensed but never fully understood. Being emotionally intelligent isn't about being soft, nice, or sensitive. It's about mastering the one thing that shapes every decision you make, your emotional brain. This chapter makes you question the biggest myth society has created, that IQ determines success. Because if IQ alone determined who thrives, then the smartest people would be the happiest, wealthiest, and most fulfilled. But look around, that's not how the world works. Here, Goleman dives into the fundamental idea that your emotions and your rational mind are constantly competing for control, and most people lose that battle without even realizing it. Emotional intelligence means understanding why you feel what you feel, the anger that flares up too fast, the anxiety that shows up without warning, the sadness you can't explain, the excitement you can't control. It means seeing emotions not as enemies to suppress, but as signals to interpret. This chapter reveals something uncomfortable. Many people live on emotional autopilot. They react instead of responding. They explode instead of expressing. They shut down instead of communicating. And the worst part, they don't even know why. Emotional intelligence is the skill that turns chaos into clarity, the ability to recognize your inner state before it hijacks your behavior. Goleman explains how emotions influence your decisions far more than logic ever does. You think you're choosing with reason, but in reality, your emotional system is already whispering or shouting in the background. This is why EQ becomes a superpower. When you understand emotions, you don't get manipulated as easily. You don't crumble under stress. You don't fall into the same destructive patterns again and again. This chapter also breaks down the foundation of EQ into 4 forces: self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and relationship management. These aren't optional skills, they're essential. They're the difference between reacting in anger or responding with clarity, between hurting the people you love or communicating what you really feel, between sabotaging your opportunities or stepping confidently into them. And then comes the biggest insight of all: emotional intelligence can be learned. It's not fixed. It's not based on your genetics. It grows as you grow. That means no matter who you are right now, you can become the kind of person who stays calm under pressure, who understands people effortlessly, who makes smart decisions even when emotions are high. By the end of this chapter, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. IQ might get you started, but emotional intelligence determines where you end up. And if you've ever wondered why some people with average intelligence achieve extraordinary success, while others with incredible IQs struggle, this is the reason. This is what emotional intelligence really means: the ability to understand your inner world so deeply that you begin to reshape your outer world with intention instead of impulse. And once you grasp this, everything else in the book starts to make sense. Chapter 2: The Science Behind Emotions. What if I told you that every emotion you feel, anger, joy, fear, excitement, jealousy, isn't random at all, but the result of ancient systems inside your brain that are still fighting to protect you? What if your emotional reactions, even the ones you hate, actually come from a survival mechanism millions of years old? And what if understanding this hidden machinery could finally explain why you lose control, why you overthink, why you react too fast, or why certain people trigger you without warning? In this chapter, Daniel Goleman takes you deep inside the architecture of the human brain, revealing a truth most people never learn. Your emotional brain evolved long before your rational brain ever existed. Before humans could analyze, calculate, plan, or think logically, we felt. We reacted. We survived through emotion, not intelligence. And that emotional wiring still runs your life today, even though the threats have changed, the system hasn't. At the center of this emotional empire sits the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure that acts like your brain's alarm system. When something feels threatening, a harsh comment, a stressful message, an unexpected problem, the amygdala reacts instantly, before your thinking mind even wakes up. This is what causes emotional hijacks. Those moments when your anger spikes, your fear floods in, or your anxiety takes over so fast you can't explain why. Your logical brain is still booting up, but your emotional brain is already shouting orders. Goleman explains that this emotional system was designed for physical danger, predators, survival, life-or-death reactions. But in the modern world, the same system reacts to disrespect, embarrassment, rejection, criticism, uncertainty, and pressure as if they were physical threats. This is why your body tenses, your heart races, your breath shortens, your thoughts speed up. The emotional brain can't tell the difference between a tiger and a tense conversation. Then there's the neocortex, especially the prefrontal cortex, the rational thinker. This part evolved much later and is responsible for planning, decision-making, reasoning, self-control. But here, the surprising part: the rational brain doesn't override the emotional brain, it negotiates with it. And when emotions are intense, logic loses. This explains why you sometimes make decisions you later regret, why stress makes you less rational, and why understanding emotions is more important than suppressing them. The chapter reveals something powerful. Emotions are biological messages. They aren't weaknesses. They aren't flaws. They're signals, urgent signals telling you what matters, what's dangerous, what's painful, what's meaningful, what's exciting. But when you don't understand the science behind these signals, they control you instead of guiding you. This is where emotional intelligence begins, knowing that every emotion is rooted in a physiological response, and that awareness gives you the ability to intervene. Once you understand that your brain reacts first and thinks second, you stop blaming yourself for emotional reactions and start learning how to manage them. By the end of this chapter, one realization hits deeply. You are not fighting your emotions, you are learning their language. You are decoding the ancient system that has shaped human behavior since the beginning of time. And once you understand the science behind emotions, your reactions stop being mysteries and start becoming choices. Chapter 3: Self-Awareness. What if the biggest battles you face aren't with the world around you, but with the emotions inside you that you haven't learned to notice yet? What if the real reason you lose control, get hurt, feel insecure, or repeat the same emotional mistakes is because you're weak, but because you can't see the emotional patterns running silently in the background of your mind? This is where self-awareness enters, and Goleman makes one thing clear. Self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence. Without it, nothing else works. This chapter begins with a powerful truth most people never admit. You can't change what you can't see. And the uncomfortable reality is that many people go through life emotionally blind. They feel anger but don't know where it comes from. They feel jealousy but don't recognize the insecurity beneath it. They feel anxious but can't identify the fear driving it. They react, but they don't understand why. They get upset, but they can't explain it. They're controlled by emotions. They don't even notice until it's too late. Self-awareness is the skill that breaks this cycle. It's the ability to step back and witness your emotions without being swallowed by them. It's like holding up a mirror to your inner world, seeing your triggers, your patterns, your strengths, your vulnerabilities, and finally understanding the emotional engine behind your behavior. When you become self-aware, you stop being a prisoner of your reactions and start becoming the author of your responses. Goleman explains that self-awareness comes in layers. The first layer is emotional recognition, being able to identify what you're feeling in the moment. Most people never get past this. They mix frustration with anger, anxiety with stress, guilt with sadness. But the more precisely you can name your emotion, the more power you gain over it. Labeling a feeling doesn't make it stronger, it weakens its control. The second layer is understanding why you feel that way. This is where true transformation begins. Maybe your irritation isn't about someone's comment, it's about feeling overlooked. Maybe your anger isn't about what happened today, it's the weight of unresolved emotions from weeks or years ago. Maybe your stress isn't about workload, it's about the fear of disappointing someone. Self-awareness connects the dots in ways logic alone never can. And then comes the deepest layer, self-honesty. The ability to admit your flaws, your insecurities, your emotional weaknesses without collapsing under them. Self-awareness doesn't demand perfection, it demands truth. And when you can look at yourself clearly without judgment, growth becomes natural instead of painful. This chapter also explains why self-awareness isn't just about emotions. It's also about understanding your values, motives, desires, patterns, and impact on others. Emotionally intelligent people don't just know what they feel, they know what they stand for. They know why they do what they do. They know where their boundaries are. They know what triggers them and what heals them. They know how their mood affects others, and they take responsibility for the energy they bring into a room. Self-awareness also protects you from self-deception. You stop blaming others for things that are actually your responsibility. You stop repeating painful patterns because you finally see them clearly. You stop reacting emotionally because you can predict your own triggers before they explode. By the end of this chapter, one lesson becomes life-changing. Self-awareness is emotional power. It's the skill that turns turbulence into understanding, confusion into clarity, and reaction into choice. It's the difference between being controlled by your emotions and being guided by them. And once you learn to observe your inner world with honesty and depth, everything else, self-regulation, empathy, relationships, becomes easier. Self-awareness is not about changing who you are. It's about finally meeting the person you've always been. Chapter 4: Self-Regulation and Emotional Control. What if the difference between a life driven by clarity and a life destroyed by impulse comes down to one skill: the ability to regulate your emotions before they take over? What if every regret, every argument, every moment you wish you could take back happened not because you felt the wrong emotion, but because you didn't know how to manage it? This chapter reveals a truth that hits hard. Your emotions are not the problem, your reaction to them is. Self-regulation is the quiet superpower that emotionally intelligent people master, and Goleman makes this unmistakably clear. It's not about suppressing your emotions, pretending you're fine, or forcing yourself to stay calm. That isn't emotional intelligence, that's emotional avoidance. Real self-regulation means noticing your emotional reaction rising, understanding what triggered it, and guiding it in a direction that serves you rather than sabotages you. This chapter begins with the concept of the emotional hijack. When the amygdala detects a threat, even an emotional one, it triggers a rapid response before the rational brain can step in. You snap, you shut down, you say something hurtful, you spiral into anxiety. The hijack isn't a flaw in your personality, it's a survival mechanism. But what makes humans powerful is the ability to intervene, to pause, breathe, reflect, and choose a response that aligns with your values rather than your impulses. Goleman explains that self-regulation is built on two abilities: interrupting the emotional impulse and redirecting it consciously. Think of it as catching the fire before it becomes a wildfire. Most people don't realize that the moment of emotional intensity, that split second before you act, is actually the most powerful moment you have. It's the space where emotional intelligence lives. This is where strategies like reframing come in. Self-regulated people challenge their first interpretations. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. Maybe I'm reacting to old wounds. Maybe this situation isn't as urgent as it feels. They don't deny their emotions. They question the story attached to them. Another crucial part of self-regulation is emotional delay. If you've ever sent a message too fast, made a decision in anger, or reacted before thinking, you've experienced the danger of emotional immediacy. Delay doesn't eliminate emotion. It gives your prefrontal cortex time to take control. Time transforms reaction into response. This chapter also reveals that emotional control isn't about staying calm all the time, it's about staying adaptive. Emotionally intelligent people still get angry, sad, stressed, or frustrated, but they don't let those emotions dictate their lives. They channel anger into boundaries, sadness into reflection, stress into strategy. They use emotion instead of being used by it. Self-regulation also touches deeper qualities: self-trust, responsibility, and accountability. When you regulate your emotions well, you become reliable. Your mood doesn't swing unpredictably. You don't explode under pressure. You don't become toxic during conflict. Others begin to trust you because you are consistent, and consistency is emotional power. One of the most striking insights in this chapter is that emotional control is not about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself in the presence of others. That is what separates emotional maturity from emotional reactivity. You stop trying to manipulate situations and start managing your inner world instead. By the end of the chapter, you realize something profound. Self-regulation is emotional freedom. It's the skill that protects your relationships, elevates your decisions, and builds inner resilience. It allows you to walk through chaos without becoming chaotic, to stand in conflict without losing your identity, and to face challenges without collapsing under pressure. When you learn to regulate your emotions, you don't just change your reactions, you change your entire life trajectory. This chapter shows you that emotional control is not about suppressing who you are. It's about becoming who you're capable of being. Chapter 5. Motivation and the Drive for Achievement. What if the real reason some people rise higher, push further, and achieve more isn't because they're naturally gifted, but because they're emotionally wired differently? What if the fuel behind success, real, lasting, meaningful success, has nothing to do with talent or intelligence, and everything to do with the emotional engine inside you? This chapter reveals a powerful truth. Emotion is the energy that turns intention into achievement. Without the right emotional drive, even the smartest plans collapse. With it, even ordinary people do extraordinary things. Goleman begins by breaking the biggest myth of achievement, that motivation is a matter of discipline or willpower. In reality, motivation is emotional. It comes from a deep internal state, a mix of curiosity, passion, persistence, and desire that pushes you forward even when logic tells you to quit. Emotional intelligence fuels this drive. The first element Goleman highlights is intrinsic motivation, the ability to pursue goals not for rewards, validation, or pressure, but because something inside you pulls you toward a higher standard. Emotionally intelligent people are not motivated by applause, they're motivated by meaning. They don't chase success to impress others, they chase it because it aligns with who they are. This inner drive creates stamina. When challenges come, they don't fall apart, they adapt, refocus, and push forward. Then comes optimism, not the naive everything is fine attitude, but a grounded emotional resilience, the belief that effort leads to progress, that setbacks are temporary, and that circumstances can be changed. Optimism is emotional armor. It protects you from defeat, from self-doubt, from quitting too early. Goleman explains that people high in emotional intelligence don't avoid failure, they expect it, learn from it, and keep going anyway. Another pillar of motivation is commitment. Emotionally intelligent individuals don't rely on fleeting bursts of enthusiasm. They build consistent habits. They set long-term visions but break them into smaller, achievable steps. They understand that motivation isn't a feeling, it's a system. When the emotional high fades, the structure remains. This is why some people can work tirelessly toward a goal even when no one is watching. Their drive comes from within, not from external pressure. Goleman also reveals something powerful. Achievement requires emotional alignment. When your values, your goals, and your emotions pull in the same direction, you become unstoppable. But when they conflict, when your goals don't match your emotional needs, you sabotage yourself. You procrastinate, you lose interest, you give up. Motivation collapses when the emotional foundation is weak. One of the most fascinating ideas in this chapter is the role of flow, a state where you are fully absorbed in what you're doing, losing track of time, distractions, and even yourself. Flow is not a random occurrence. It's the result of emotional engagement, challenge, focus, and internal drive aligning perfectly. Emotionally intelligent people know how to enter flow more often because they understand how to regulate their internal state. This chapter also examines achievement orientation, the desire to continuously improve rather than settle. People with high EQ don't fear high standards, they welcome them. They treat goals as evolving targets, constantly raising the bar not to punish themselves but to grow. For them, effort is satisfying. Progress is energizing, and success is simply a natural side effect of consistent emotional engagement. By the end of this chapter, a striking insight becomes clear. Motivation is not a gift, it's an emotional skill. It grows from the ability to manage your inner world, to stay steady when others panic, to push forward when others hesitate, and to believe in possibility when others see limits. Emotional intelligence fuels persistence, resilience, creativity, and courage, the exact ingredients required to achieve anything meaningful. This chapter ultimately shows that the most powerful drive doesn't come from external rewards or pressure. It comes from the emotional spark inside you, the one that refuses to settle, refuses to quit, and refuses to let your potential go unrealized. And once you learn to ignite that spark, achievement stops being an accident and becomes a way of life. Chapter 6: Empathy and Understanding Others. Imagine walking into a room and instantly sensing the tension, feeling the excitement, or recognizing the quiet sadness behind someone's forced smile without a single word being spoken. Imagine being able to read people the way others read signs on a highway, effortlessly understanding what they need, what they fear, and what they're trying so hard to hide. That ability isn't magic. It isn't intuition. It's empathy, one of the most powerful and misunderstood pillars of emotional intelligence. Daniel Goleman reveals in this chapter that empathy is not just about being nice or soft. It's about perception, connection, and influence. It is the emotional skill that allows you to understand the internal world of others, their motives, their feelings, their struggles, their unspoken truths, and respond in a way that strengthens trust, communication, and cooperation. Empathy is the secret language of human relationships, and those who master it hold tremendous power. Goleman breaks empathy into several layers, the first being cognitive empathy, the intellectual ability to understand what someone else is feeling. This is the empathy of clarity, recognizing that a coworker's frustration comes from overwhelm, not anger at you, seeing that a friend's silence is fear, not indifference. It allows you to predict reactions, diffuse conflict before it explodes, and communicate with precision instead of assumptions. Then comes emotional empathy, the ability to actually feel what others feel. This is the level where true connection happens, where you can stand in another person's emotional shoes and experience a piece of their reality. Emotional empaths are often the ones people turn to for comfort, because even without words, others feel understood, acknowledged, and safe in their presence. But the most powerful form Goleman describes is compassionate empathy, where understanding and feeling combine into action. This is where empathy stops being passive and becomes transformative. It's not enough to know someone is hurting, you're driven to help. It's not enough to sense someone's potential, you naturally encourage them toward it. Compassionate empathy builds loyalty, deepens relationships, and makes you a leader people willingly follow. This chapter also exposes why empathy is rare in today's world. Distractions, ego, speed, and stress disconnect us from each other. When you're rushing, multitasking, or consumed by your own emotions, you can't tune into someone else's emotional frequency. Goleman explains that empathy requires presence, the ability to slow down internally and give another person full, undiluted attention. That alone makes people feel valued in ways they rarely experience. Empathy isn't only interpersonal, it's also foundational for understanding diversity, different perspectives, and the human experience itself. Emotionally intelligent people don't assume everyone thinks like they do. They understand how upbringing, culture, personality patterns, and emotional histories shape people differently. And because of that, they communicate more effectively, avoid unnecessary conflict, and navigate complex social dynamics with ease. One of the most profound insights in this chapter is that empathy creates emotional influence. When people feel understood, they open up. They listen. They trust. They let you guide them. Leaders, teachers, parents, partners, those who succeed in these roles aren't the ones who demand obedience. They're the ones who understand emotions. Influence built through empathy is sustainable, healthy, and deeply impactful. Goleman also reveals how empathy protects relationships. Without it, misunderstandings multiply, resentment grows, and people drift apart, emotionally long before they part physically. With empathy, small conflicts remain small, emotional needs are met before they turn into frustration, and bonds grow stronger through challenges instead of breaking under them. By the end of this chapter, the message is unmistakable. Empathy is not weakness, it is emotional strength. It is the skill that allows you to understand without judging, connect without forcing, and support without controlling. It turns communication into trust, interactions into connection, and relationships into something meaningful, deep, and lasting. And once you develop empathy, real, grounded, emotionally intelligent empathy, you will never see people the same way again. You won't just hear their words, you'll understand their world. And that brings us to the end of this deep dive into emotional intelligence, a journey through the mind, across the landscape of emotions, and straight into the heart of what makes us human. If you've been following along, you've probably noticed something. This book isn't just about understanding emotions, it's about mastering life. It's about seeing yourself with clarity, controlling what once controlled you, connecting with people on a deeper level, and unlocking the inner strengths you didn't realize you already had. Think about it for a moment. How would your life change if you could understand your emotions before acting on them? If you could read people better? If your relationships became stronger, your decisions wiser, and your presence more powerful? That's the promise of emotional intelligence, and Daniel Goleman's work gives you the roadmap to achieve it. But remember, awareness is only the first step. Transformation comes from applying what you've learned. Use these chapters as a mirror. Use them as a guide. Use them as a starting point for becoming the most emotionally intelligent version of yourself. And if this summary helped you, if it opened your eyes or shifted your perspective even a little, then imagine what the full book can do. Before you go, I want to ask you for one small favor, but trust me, it makes a huge difference. If you gained value from this video, hit the like button. If you want more deep, life-changing book summaries, make sure to subscribe. And comment below which book you want next. Your suggestion might be the next video on this channel. You're not just watching summaries here. You're building a smarter, stronger, more emotionally aware version of yourself. And I'm honored to be part of that journey with you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next summary.